Welcome to the Future of Ground Transportation podcast, where we discuss the exciting innovations that lie ahead for organizational ground transportation. Each episode, we cover topics tailored to those resolving transportation-related challenges and provide tips, tools, and trends that will inspire you to stay ahead of the curve. And now, here's your host, Daniel Perez.
Welcome to the Future of Ground Transportation. Today, we have a unique guest from the other side of the world, Mr. Stuart Stratton, with connection all the way down from Australia. Stuart, welcome to our podcast today. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you for taking the time for joining us today. So let's get started. Stuart, tell us a little bit of how you got. Well, first of all, I know that you're on the other side of the world, and so thank you for being generous with your time. So tell us a little bit about how you guys started in the transportation sector. First, tell us a little bit about your company, where you guys operate, how many vehicles, and how many drivers.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, we operate, our head office is based out of the beautiful Gold Coast, Australia, in southeast Queensland. So for those people listening from home, possibly in the US somewhere, if you have heard that Australia is about to host the upcoming Olympics in 2028, it's about an hour south of Brisbane, where the Olympics will be held. So we're the surf coast and the holiday capital of Australia. There's a big strip full of high-rise holiday apartments and hotels and beautiful beaches. So our business sort of was born out of the tourism industry here. We kicked off in 2001. We have currently 85 vehicles and pretty close to 200 drivers in the pool. A lot of our drivers are older gentlemen that do it as a part-time gig and do it because they love what they do. The bulk of our work revolves around airport transfers and airport shuttles, and so they're always dealing with people who are either on their way to a holiday, if they're a local here that's heading out, or obviously a lot of holiday makers on arrival into destination, ready to make the most of their travels here. And then, I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more, but we've expanded out from this location, but that's where it all started.
Got it. Thank you for sharing the context. So tell us how you guys started in this industry. Out of all the industry, why did you choose this one?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say mostly by accident. So I originally was in direct sales and telecommunications. That was where my career sort of started. I ran contact centers originally here on the Gold Coast, and even prior to that, door-to-door sales teams for telecommunications. What happened was my folks decided they'd like to move up to the sunny Gold Coast. So we originally from the UK immigrated to Adelaide, South Australia, which geographically is sort of the south middle of Australia. And it's a little bit cooler there. Weather's not quite so nice. And I'd moved up since my late teens to the Gold Coast, and my folks decided that they might like to live up here too. And to relocate, their intention was to buy a small business, get a house, settle down. And so they found a small business that had 4 buses, was running tours predominantly to the Asian inbound market from Singapore, Malaysia, Korea, and Japan. And that was just leading up to SARS, the original COVID. So things very quickly overnight changed due to that first epidemic. Basically, that whole market stopped.
So how was it when you first started in comparison to how it is now? I mean, you said you started in 2001?
Yep.
Okay. So it's
been years. Yeah, so basically then we started, so there was 4 buses in that organisation that my folks bought. I said in 2003, the work basically stopped to the point that, so I really didn't have a lot to do with it in that first couple of years. They were running it as a small business out the back of the house. And at that point, they reached out to me in 2003. I had my contact centre business and said, Stuart, can you give us a bit of help here? We think there's something wrong with the fax. Because obviously back then all work came through on the fax. So basically what happened was, overnight that business dried up completely. And at that point, they were in a little bit of a pickle. They were faced with a situation where the business wasn't going to be viable, and it was a case of, do they sell the buses, forget their dreams, and possibly do something else and go and get a job, or is it an opportunity to evolve and adapt this business? And so that's sort of where I got involved with the business. Identified that there was an opportunity where there was a pretty fragmented market in the airport shuttle scene in southeast Queensland. There was about 8 different players, and I thought there was an opportunity to enter the market into that space with the vehicles they had. That was 4 buses then, and we ended up actually going on an acquisition spree. Post that, we started with a partnership initially with an operator that was running a 10-bus operation and unable to cope with the volume of work coming through and hadn't got the right systems in order. And we ended up taking over that organisation and then expanded throughout the last 20 years with about another 11 other acquisitions. So it's predominantly been growth by acquisition.
Awesome. So how many acquisitions have you done, Stuart, so far?
11.
11. Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah. So what has been the biggest challenge, a little bit of the acquisition side and the current challenges that you guys are experiencing as a transportation company in Australia?
Yeah, okay. So acquisition style challenges, we've always found it's down to the people. It's the cultural side of things. It's trying to bring 2 cultures together. We had one situation on one of our North Coast, which was Sunshine Coast acquisitions, where we had 2 bitter rivals that we had purchased one of them first and then the second one around about 12 months later. And there was almost this sort of Mexican standoff in the yard when we first introduced everyone. Getting 2 teams that had been taught, that the other one was, I suppose the bad guy, and having them come back together and work together under a new brand, that was very, very interesting and probably one of the most challenging times for my brother and GM at the time, and also myself to try and bring that together. We got through it, but we certainly learn a lot from that experience around that change management culture piece. From our internal, what's our challenge today perspective? Our biggest challenge right now is we run services that run to and from Brisbane Airport from the regional coast, and our government, in all its great wisdom, has subsidised public transport 50 cents. So we're now facing a situation where, even though our services are better and more convenient and all these sorts of things, we've got a massive price disparity where we're an unsubsidised service against a directly subsidised public transport network. So, working on differentiation and communication and I suppose the sort of client bases that are less sensitive to price and moving ourselves in that direction is a big challenge.
Got it. What about, you mentioned you have about 200 drivers. What are the challenges that you guys are experiencing the most with 200 drivers?
Yeah. So we, to be honest, we used to have more challenges. I think we've got better over the years at managing and looking after that team. We have some automated review systems. We've brought transparency into the service level deliveries that they're providing. We have been able to resolve things like recruitment, which was very, very difficult at one point in time, where there is there is a big shortage of drivers Australia-wide at the moment, for example. And so the way we address that challenge, and it was more so post-COVID, because COVID, we ended up with a 90% reduction in team members and in business, within a 3-week period. So we had a lot of drivers that actually decided through that period that it was time to retire. They were going to leave the industry, obviously because they're all in that sort of later age group, and that things weren't going to get back to normal quickly enough for them to rejoin the workforce. So for us to build back out the other side of that, one of the interesting things, we use social media very heavily in our recruitment strategy, and found that selling a part-time lifestyle opportunity more so than a driving career was the big shift for us, and that's allowed us to get drivers that are there for the right reasons. They're there because they love what they do and they enjoy the role, not because they're chasing the next dollar or motivated by trying to get 50 hours a week in or something like that. So we found getting drivers that want to be there for the right reasons, that enjoy what they're doing, that might be in their twilight years, and having a greater number of them doing a less amount of hours has meant that that they're not overworked. Our satisfaction rating and NPS scores have gone through the roof.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. A little bit of transition into innovation and technology. What are the technology that has been helping you guys the most, or what innovations and technology are you currently guys more excited about currently?
Yeah, for sure. So 15 or so years ago, we embarked on building our own software platform. There really wasn't anything suitable in the space that would deliver on what we required as a multi-stop shuttle provider that does a different route every single trip. So we've continuously developed that through the years. One of the biggest things we're adopting right now is our guys are using, and it's only happened in the last few weeks, I think it's really sunk in for them, is that they're now, as software developers, architects and less programmers, and that's using AI to create a lot of our modules. We had projects that we've been sitting on for quite a while now around rebuilding modules to later versions. Yesterday, I just got reported to me that one of those modules that we'd scoped a 4-week build time took us 7 hours. So it's very, very exciting where that's heading. I think there's some really big opportunities to automate scheduling and bring that sort of those roles that were heavily driven by humans previously to a point where they can actually focus on the customer impact and the communication, and not so much about the grunt work of bringing schedules together. And as a business, our biggest thing that we're developing at the moment is a shift away from being a transport provider to being a transport platform. And the software to drive that is a consumer app that we just launched. We have a driver app that we've launched, and then it's all about bringing all the stakeholders and making that available to concierge, to tour operators, to conference organisers, and by plugging everybody in and giving them the same level of visibility our operations team gets, you reduce calls and you reduce the client expectation, and give them that real time information. So it's certainly a big part of the way we're headed.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And as far as the electrical vehicles and autonomous vehicles, what is your thoughts when it comes to electrical vehicles and autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, look, it's definitely the way of the future. I purchased a Tesla about 2 years ago just to get familiar with it and understand the technology and get a good feeling for what it looks like. We work closely with Brisbane Airport Corporation as the groundside airport shuttle provider. They run an electric fleet on their airside. So we've had some exposure to what that looks like in in a working environment. They've had it now for about 8 or 9 years, so it's not brand new. They were one of the earliest adopters in Australia. But what we're seeing in Australia at the moment is it's still predominantly in the public space where the economics don't have as much, I suppose, to do with the reason for deployment. Our challenge as an organisation is that our vehicles do 700 or 800 kilometres a day, and getting that type of range out of vehicles at the moment isn't quite there. I think it will head in that direction, and we're also skewed towards that smaller to medium-sized vehicle. We have a handful of coaches, but the bulk of the small to medium-sized vehicles at this point don't have viable options in Australia. So I think it's coming, and we're very closely watching it. We're about to move into a new depot. We're making sure that the power supply is there for when it comes. But yeah, it's still early stages here in Australia at the moment, which is crazy because we've got abundant sunlight and renewable energy, and that's another business interest I have. So we should be adopting it first, but it's taking a little longer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what about autonomous vehicles or flying vehicles? What comes to your mind when you hear autonomous or flying vehicles, Stuart?
Yeah, look, so flying vehicles, when they are ready, will absolutely have a great place here in this neck of the woods because our traffic issues are just horrendous. Our main route to Brisbane, for example, from here, on a good day is 50 minutes. On a bad day could be 2 hours 20. So it's a big impact there, and obviously people like certainty. So I see there being an opportunity there in the flying space, just because obviously from a time perspective that would be huge, and the certainty side of things. In the autonomous vehicle side, there is trials started. There's obviously robo-taxis and Waymo and everything else. I see that being a bit of a disruptor to our smaller vehicle and direct-to-consumer shuttle business. I see what we do there is arbitrage the cost of a driver across multiple passengers. Once you don't have that cost of driver, it's probably going to become more economical for people to use an individual vehicle and trade up from using a shuttle experience. So I see that being something that's somewhat of a threat to that traditional business, but at the same time, it becomes an opportunity for us to take customers on that journey as well. So part of us building out this transport platform, we already are now introducing cars as part of that offering. So it's not just shuttles, but it's cars and private transfers as well. And the idea is that as we have our client base start to utilize more private car services, we can, with that platform, introduce autonomous vehicles and become the platform by which people choose them. So whether we end up owning and maintaining a fleet or not, I think that's yet to be seen. But I think there's also going to be obviously a large contingent of big operators that are going to come in behind with possibly Tesla and Uber. So it's definitely going to be challenging to find out where our place is, I think, in that market in the future when the big guys sort of come to town. But yeah, that's a little bit of my take on it. The simple answer is I don't know at this stage. It's a watch this space.
I mean, and you brought a great point because everyone that I interview, no one has a crystal ball, right? So it's really interesting your perspective. And shifting a little bit of mindset here, what is the best business advice you ever gotten so far?
Yeah. Okay. So I think the best business advice I got was in the early days with our transport business. It was actually a conversation I had with our accountant that demonstrated the benefits of scale to our business, and that we were at that point in time, the valley of death, if you like, where we needed a lot more good people on board the team, but we weren't at a scale where we could afford those people. And it was kind of a grow or die at that stage. So certainly understanding that and then heading onto that acquisition trail for us was a really important turning point. And that was certainly in the early days. And then I think more recently it's been around just not sweating the small stuff. Understanding that we're going to ruffle feathers on our journey, and at the end of the day, you can take so much on board, but as an entrepreneur and as a leader, you realise that it's kind of part of the course. And I think these days I've certainly managed to get to a point where I don't take things to heart quite the same as I used to.
Yeah, that is very well said. That is very well said. And what are your top book recommendations, Stuart, that you normally either recommend or had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, so the biggest impact on me, Good to Great, Jim Rohn. The Flywheel, that's certainly that's been an absolute cornerstone book on that sort of constant, never-ending improvement that we've focused on in the business. We always say that, as a business, it's never one big thing that's the challenge. It's generally a whole host of smaller things that need addressing. And the other, it's a golden oldie, but How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, I think is just an absolute must for anyone that's starting out in a career, or even later on if they haven't read it before. I think it's just that human psychology piece is huge.
Great recommendations. I love both of them, especially the last one. It had such a I read it all the time. Every time I have an important meeting, it always reminds me, so, okay, what is it that I need to read over here? How do I influence, or how do I connect with this other person on the other side of the table? So great recommendation.
And the only other one, the simple art of not giving a what, but that was what I was talking about before.
Got it. Thank you for those recommendations. And Stuart, for folks that might have transportation program needs in your area, what will be the best way to stay in contact with you?
Yeah, look, my email's Stuart@cxn, so it's Stuart STUART @cxn.com.au was the best way to reach out and connect with me. And our website, cxn.com.au, with all our sort of offerings on it.
Perfect. We will make sure to put it on the episode notes. Stuart, thank you again for being generous with your time, for sharing your story, and wish you the best. All right. And for all the listeners, stay tuned for our next guest. And for any upcoming transportation programs in the Northeast region, please reach out to us. Have a great day. Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks, Daniel. Cheers.
Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed the episode and got some valuable insights. If you're curious to learn more, head over to the resource website at dpvtransportation.com, where we got a ton of useful resources and tools for you to stay ahead of the game. And before we wrap it up, I want to invite you to book a free guest admission consultation, or a consultation about your ground transportation program with us. Just register on our website. Is a fantastic way to see how your fleet is doing, or how your overall program could be improved. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on the Future of Ground Transportation. Have a great day.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Ground Transportation. We appreciate you coming along for the ride. If you found value in this episode and want to hear more, please make sure to subscribe to the show.